Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Hypnobirthing Group. I'm Andy Coley, and I'm joined here by Tracy Oweri. Now, I am aware that it's supposed to be Sophie Kirkham here. Sophie is... Oh, it's just reminding me I've got this thing. Sophie is actually at a birth at the moment, so she's unavailable. Now, I'm Sophie's partner, and I do a lot of work with clients. I do a lot of work around confidence. So I said to Sophie, wow, we've got people joining in. We're going to run it anyway. How about I interview Tracy? Tracy's going to do most of the talking because Tracy's the expert here. And we're going to run it like an interview Q&A. So if you've got questions, you've got things that you'd like to know about, pop them up onto the screen and say hi and let us know where you're calling from as well. And we'll just run this as an interview and see what happens. Be very emergent. So Tracy, do you want to tell us a little bit more, just kind of a bit of a background about yourself, really?
Yeah, sure. So hello everyone, I'm Tracy. I'm one of the admins in the group as well, which you may know. So I'm based in Islington, North London, and I've been running hypnobirthing group classes and also one-to-one classes for the last 3.5 years or so. And I'm here today, like Andy said, just to talk a bit more about when a pregnancy has special circumstances or when a birth has special circumstances, and I guess how hypnobirthing can help with that.
Fantastic. So we should probably start there, actually, that word special circumstances. What does that mean, do you think, to the people that you hypnobirth or maybe even to yourself?
So when we talk about special circumstances in pregnancy or in birth, this basically means in a nutshell when things go slightly off course or not the way that you may have expected them to be. So sometimes I speak with women who know in advance, so ahead of their baby's birth, that there might be a particular reason why they might need some assistance, so maybe some medical intervention is required, either because of something that is happening with their health, their body, or with their baby's body. So basically something that exists in their pregnancy that is deemed to have an impact on the way they might give birth to their baby.
Okay, so you kind of came into, one of the reasons Sophie wanted to have this interview with you is you kind of had something around your pregnancy that kind of was deemed special circumstances. You want to give a bit of background about your sort of, birth and Adam coming into the world?
Yeah, indeed, of course. So I have a baby who's now 7 years old, so he's no longer a baby, and he was my hypnobirthing baby. So with my pregnancy back in 2008, going into 2009 when Adam was born, I had what was known as a cervical weakness. So this meant that under the growing weight of my baby, my cervix was shortening and sometimes funneling, so kind of opening slightly under the weight of the growing baby and obviously the everything else that goes along with it, everything else with the rest of his body growing. So because of this, I had a suture, so a stitch in my cervix, which was designed to keep it closed during the rest of my pregnancy so that Adam can get to full term safely. Because in that particular situation, if the cervix opens too early, of course, this means that the baby loses their water, so your water's released, and then a baby being born very prematurely. So those were my special circumstances.
Right, okay.
Yes.
When we were talking about the sort of lead up to doing this earlier, you said there was something around the labelling of the way that they labelled what was happening with your cervix that was part of something you kind of had to do a lot of work with.
Definitely, yes. And that's where I think hypnobirthing definitely helped me the most in terms of the language. So cervical weakness is sometimes referred to as cervical incompetence. And this word incompetent, that word became me as soon as this title was mentioned or was kind of thrown around. Of course you understand what it is they're saying, this label of your cervix having some kind of difficulty, maybe needing a bit of extra support. But just because of the way as human beings we take on board language, it's our primary means of communication, I had started to feel ways that were perhaps sort of lacking confidence, feeling that my body wasn't doing what it was supposed to do naturally to keep my baby safe, to keep my baby in for the duration that he should safely be in utero for. So, yeah, I found that affected the way that I was feeling about being pregnant. So it was the happiest time of my life because I couldn't wait to meet him. But at the same time, I was so scared of meeting him too soon, of him not coming at the right time, him coming far too soon.
Yeah.
And I decided that I was incompetent, that I as a person and as a mother was incompetent, which of course on a rational level I knew was completely not true.
Yeah.
But again, because of this use of language and how it can affect us on a cellular level and really affect the way that we feel about ourselves, I was carrying that fear and that worry that because I couldn't, my body wasn't doing what it should to carry him safely to full term, that perhaps I wouldn't be able to birth him naturally as well. Those were my concerns.
And that's a really interesting thing. I do quite a lot of work with healthcare professionals about how do they deliver news and information. And to deliver to somebody that, you know, there's an incompetent cervix there, or you've got a part of your body that isn't necessarily, you know, normal. And I think there is something around that word of normal. You certainly mentioned that you sort of end up feeling abnormal because of it. Unless that's really artfully delivered, people can take that on as part of their identity. So they start to feel incompetent. It's not that they're incompetent, it's just that there's a part of the body that actually needs to have a little bit of attention paid to it. That there is something extra there that needs to be looked at. So you kind of set out about kind of doing research and empowering yourself around knowing a little bit more about this word, you know, having incompetent cervix.
Indeed, yeah. So I went online, as all pregnant women do. God knows how anyone
in fact,
had.
Quite a lot.
Yes, and God knows how anyone had a baby before the internet. So I am a really detail-orientated person, and I like to really understand things and research, and that's my nature. That's the way I learn and take on information. So I did a lot of research around this apparent cervical incompetence. So in terms of the way this was actually noticed or diagnosed, I was having a scan one day, just a routine scan at about sort of 13, 14 weeks. So my first scan was a little later than other people might have it at 12. And they were seeing that my cervix was actually funneling on the scan itself. And what that means is, if you imagine my fingers being a closed cervix, what they were actually seeing was this kind of opening and then closing again. So it wasn't staying open, but just as the baby was moving, and at 14 weeks he wasn't huge, but he was getting sizable, this was happening.
Yeah.
So the sonographers obviously shared their concerns with me, and they said, we think this is what's happening, and the chances are that you may go into preterm labour or have preterm loss of your waters may break very, very early.
Okay.
So because of this, they suggested that a cervical suture or a stitch would be the best course of action. And this meant actually putting a stitch around the cervix, almost like a purse string, if you imagine, to help keep it closed for the duration of the pregnancy, which would then be removed at 37 weeks when you're considered pretty much full term and the baby is big enough and mature enough to be born safely.
Yeah, so there's just something else that they needed to do to support your body in getting ready for the birth, basically.
Exactly, and just keeping him there safely. So, yes, I went on lots of forums, did a lot of research, and I empowered myself on the knowledge side of the medical procedure. So I understood what needed to be done, the different ways in which it could be done, the different risks and benefits, etc., associated with the different options that one might take in that situation. So one of the options, or one of the things that some women do, depending on the severity of their situation, is they may actually just remain on bed rest for their pregnancy. But as I mentioned, I was about 14 weeks when it was diagnosed, so it wasn't really practical for me to be on bed rest with my feet in the air for, the remaining...
however many weeks it was until the baby was ready to come. Yeah.
Exactly. So the most rational option for me was to have this suture and to understand what that was about and how that would work for me. So I did have that, and that was great. However, I still had the label. I was still incompetent, even though, I've had help and I've been strengthened. I still, identified, took this word on as part of who I was. And then I came across hypnobirthing. I found out about hypnobirthing from a podcast that I used to listen to, an American podcast with a group of women that was always focused around kind of viewing pregnancy and birth as normal and natural, and doing what you can to support a woman in her natural childbirth choices. And so there was a particular week when a group of women came on, so women that had had their babies, they'd previously been guests on the show while pregnant, and came back with their babies in tow, and spoke about using hypnobirthing.
Okay.
And a couple of those women said, it was fantastic, there was no pain, I felt really calm and comfortable and even ecstatic at some points. And then there was other women who said, I felt really empowered because they wanted to do X, Y, and Z to me, but actually I knew that I could question this, and I knew that I could perhaps push back. And even if I did go ahead with what they were suggesting, I felt empowered because I understood why they were suggesting it, and then I made that informed decision and gave my informed consent to go ahead with that particular procedure. And it was actually the latter. It was the women that talked about the empowerment that really kind of turned me onto hypnobirthing, because I had no worries or concerns about pain. That wasn't something that I was at all worried about. I didn't. It's not even something that I factored in. I thought, yes, I'm supposed to have a baby. My body knows how to have a baby, so whatever happens in terms of sensations will happen. But my main thing, because of my situation, was this fear, I suppose, of somebody telling me what to do and delivering my baby as opposed to me birthing my baby. And so I did have this loss of confidence, feeling like I wouldn't be able to do it myself. So when I heard these women talking about using hypnobirthing and the techniques that are taught and some of the practical information that's taught in hypnobirthing about how to understand what your options are, how to understand when something is a hospital protocol versus when something is specific to your individual circumstance, that's what really was kind of the light bulb for me. And I thought, I need to know. I need to know about that. Is actually what those were my exact thoughts. I need to know about that because I want to understand what I can do for myself.
And that's really there's a lot of knowledge out there on these Facebook pages. Remember though that they're quite a lot of the time it is people's opinions as well. So, like all opinions, as you're taught through the process of hypnobirthing, make sure you end up listening to yourself, your own intuition as well. But you were saying one of the things that you really found useful was that ability to reframe.
Yes.
Yeah. So reframing is effectively like here's a thing, and I can look at it through one window from one perspective, but actually, what's a different way I could look at it? Because if you just move slightly left or to the right, and so maybe use slightly different language, it's still the same thing, but you've reframed it. You said reframing it was really important in terms of switching that language around.
Yes, definitely. And I have to say the reframing is actually, it's probably been the most significant thing for me that I learnt through hypnobirthing. It's actually something that I've kept. That wasn't just a skill as a pregnant woman to just use while you're pregnant or even just use while you're having a baby. That's something that I've carried forward into my life. And this might sound really kind of over the top, but hypnobirthing has changed my life because through hypnobirthing I went on to study hypnotherapy, I went on to learn a bit about NLP, I went on to be a hypnobirthing teacher. And I've been able to, and I was able to, during my pregnancy, change things around. So whereas at the time, prior to finding out about hypnobirthing, I was very much focused on what I was concerned about, what I was worried about, what I didn't want to happen. So I didn't want my stitch to fail at 25 weeks and my son to be born at that time. I didn't want my son to be delivered by an obstetrician. I wanted to birth him myself. So that's what I started to do, to look at what I did want. So I would have my affirmations. So I wrote some affirmations specific to my own circumstances. And for those of you that might be new to hypnobirthing and affirmations, these are basically positive statements for birth. So putting together very simple phrases that you repeat to yourself either in your mind or out loud, maybe have them on little flashcards that you might stick around your house and in places that you come upon. And again, this is used not just in pregnancy for hypnobirthing, but in your general life as well. These are things that you can use. So
which ones did you have?
So my favourite one was my body and my baby are strong and we can do this. Because that was the thing with the incompetence and the weakness. Even though the word weakness I found kinder than the word incompetence, telling myself that I was strong it made a big difference, because it might seem sort of a simple thing to look at yourself and say, I am strong, I'm this, I'm that. But it did make a difference to me, because actually I know that I am a strong person. And I know that I've done lots of things in life that were very, very hard. Fair enough, they might not have been related to mothering or pregnancy or birth, but I've done some tough things in my life and I've got through those things, and I thought, wow, I did it, and I'm really proud of that. And I thought, well, why should pregnancy and birth be any different? I've succeeded in difficult things prior to that. I can do the same again now. So like I mentioned, I wrote some affirmations that I would repeat to myself and would stick around my house to kind of give me that confidence boost, and really focusing on where I wanted to be. So, and it's not just wishful thinking. Sometimes people say, you can't just wish for £1 million and get it. You can't just wish for the perfect birth and get it.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect or wishful thinking. It's about having done your research, knowing what it is you want, and then focusing on it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say that the other things might not happen, but then having the confidence to know that, okay, if the worst, in my situation, if the worst did happen, I am in the best possible care in terms of the care providers that I've chosen. I know that if my suture or my stitch isn't successful and it was to fail at 20-something weeks, I know that my baby would be in the best hospital, for example.
Yeah.
So let me not worry about that now. Let me not think about it because it's not something that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Let me focus on what is happening right now. Right now, I am pregnant. I am however many weeks. So every Thursday, because my week began on a Thursday, every Thursday I'd give myself a pat on the tummy and a pat on the back.
Another week.
And say, well
Tick.
done, exactly,
Yeah.
and say, well done, baby, as well, because we were doing it together.
Yeah.
And I think speaking to him, so I knew he was a boy, speaking to him and saying, I'm doing the best that I can and we're in the best hands and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
That really made the difference. And all of the other things fell by the wayside. I stopped thinking about what happens if it doesn't work and what happens when they take the stitch out. Because funnily enough, that was a concern for me. Even though that I knew the stitch would be taken out at 37 weeks, which is considered a safe time for baby to be born, I was still concerned about that. I thought, well, what if he's not ready? What if his lungs aren't ready yet and he's born straight away? But then, again, all of that just melted away and I thought, well, again, if he is born at 37 weeks, firstly, from a logical point of view, why wouldn't he be ready in terms of his lungs and his brain? And because as we know about human development, at that time they are, very well cooked. And if they're not, we're in the hospital and, top place where they can look after him if need be. And then I just focused on what I wanted.
Okay.
That was really what made the difference, I think.
And there's a really good phrase that I wrote up earlier when we were having that quick chat, so which is a great one to run through on your pregnancy. So if the birth of your baby could be exactly the way you'd like it to be, it'll be like what? And what was that answer for you? So if the birth of Adam was exactly where you wanted that to go, it was like what?
Yeah, so I had some really clear things actually. So if the birth of Adam could be how I wanted it to be, I wanted to have a vaginal birth, and I wanted to do it myself. And by do it myself, I meant I didn't want to be chemically induced. I didn't want anything introduced into my system that would affect the way Adam was when he was born.
Yeah.
So in fact, Adam was very ready. So I went into hospital at 37 weeks. I think I was exactly 37 weeks. Or maybe a day or two after.
Thursday.
I think it wasn't a Thursday, actually, it was Monday, so I was 37 plus 4.
Cool.
So I went into hospital on a Sunday night and the stitch was taken out on Monday.
Yeah.
And they said to me, you are 3 centimetres dilated. So we think you should stick around because you might have a baby today.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I don't think I am having a baby today. I really don't think so. And to be honest, I can't have a baby today because I've not washed his clothes. That was the rational.
Not ready yet.
Those are the rational thoughts going through my mind. I've not washed his clothes, and his dad won't know what to do if I tell him to bring a bag to the hospital. But they said, we think you should just stick around. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And as it happened, they were right.
Okay.
And Adam did come that day. Adam came at 9:54 that evening. So I laboured for about 12 hours. And I did it the way I wanted to do it. So there was no induction of my labour. So like I said, I was dilating anyway, and then things came on naturally from then onwards. And he was delivered vaginally as well. There were some points at which, I will be honest and say, there were some points at which I was spoken to in ways that I didn't take too kindly to. Okay. So I was threatened with caesarean. They did say if he doesn't come in the next, whatever the time frame was, we will take you into theatre. Note that we will take you into theatre, not we will discuss with you whether or not that is the best option. And I very calmly said to them, but why? But why should that happen? Is he in any danger? I know that I'm not in any danger. You're monitoring me, you're monitoring him. Is his heart rate fine? Is everything fine? And of course they had to admit that yes, it is. In which case, then I don't want to talk about caesarean. I'd like that to be the last mention of it, unless, of course, something changes and there is a specific reason that you think that would be the safest option for me and my baby. Then please bring it to me again. But please don't threaten me with caesarean because it's taking too long, according to
some timescale that it doesn't actually, have. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was the real kind of breakthrough for me, because like I mentioned, I had a concern that he would be delivered. So whether that was, via cesarean or instrumental or vaginal, whatever the situation may be. And I didn't want that, because I think that added to my sense of I can't do it and I have this weakness or this incompetence. So being able to see that through, so this picture of what I wanted my birth to look like, being able to see that through made all the difference.
Brilliant.
To me, definitely.
And in relation to sort of finding out about hypnobirthing for your own birth, for Adam's birth, in fact, did you go to classes or look up videos? What did you do for yourself?
For myself, I actually did a home study, because I was pretty late in my pregnancy, actually. I was either in the late 20s, I think I was in the late 20s. I was not far off going on maternity leave. So I might have been about sort of 28, 29 weeks. So I bought a book and the accompanying CDs, and I did home study. And I sort of looked at some further stuff online, because like I mentioned, I'm very detail orientated, and when I found techniques in the book to talk about how to perhaps deal with difficult thoughts, self-doubting thoughts, I would then go up and look for specific techniques and maybe additional scripts that would complement that side of my anxiety. So I did it all from home. But I think if I was earlier in my pregnancy, I definitely would have sought out a teacher. Just having somebody experienced to ask questions of, because it's great to have online communities and forums, etc. But a lot of it can be conjecture, it can be opinions, some of which will be accurate and some of which will just be based on assumptions. So just being able to access somebody who is trained, who does know what they're talking about, and even if they're not trained to answer your specific question, because it may be a medical question, they are usually very well connected and are able to signpost you. So I know that when I've taught couples who have had, whether it's special circumstances or just questions related to pregnancy or something medical, I never give that medical advice, because I'm not qualified to do that. I'm not medically trained at all. But I can then point them in the right direction.
The relevant people. And
give them that support that way.
So you now teach hypnobirthing?
I do, yes.
So how long have you been doing that for?
I've been teaching hypnobirthing for about 3 years, coming into 3.5 years now. Yes.
And using your experience of or Adam's birth, keep saying your birth, excuse me, of Adam's birth, what difference does that make for the people that kind of come along to your classes? And sort of, what are you noticing now that's different because of your own experience that you can bring to that?
I think definitely one of the things is I typically will have a phone call with clients before they book onto my course. Sometimes they'll just go ahead and book online, but oftentimes people like to talk, which that's kind of what I'm about anyway. I enjoy speaking to couples ahead of meeting them. I like to get a sense of what they want to get out of hypnobirthing, which of course we do talk about in the class, but ahead of time before meeting a mother, and it's typically the mother that calls me, getting a sense of what is their scenario, what are they bringing to the class, what would they like to get out of the class. And interestingly, I found that over the years I have attracted quite a few clients that do have special circumstances in their pregnancy, things that either they've known about from the point of meeting me, or things that may have emerged later on in their pregnancies. And I think people are actually sometimes quite, how do I put this, relieved to know that their teacher has had special circumstances. Because I'm not speaking, I'm not being taught by somebody that had everything absolutely perfect and lined up and went according to the book of, what a perfect pregnancy or birth should look like. This is a woman who was worried throughout a lot of her pregnancy, was very happy to be pregnant but very worried, was concerned about what the birth would be like. And here I am, sitting in front of you in a class, letting you know that even if you are worried, even if there is something unique to your pregnancy, unique to your baby, unique to your body, that means that you may need assistance in some way. That doesn't mean that you can't have an empowering experience. There are still things you can do to take back control where you feel like it's been lost, because like I mentioned, I felt like things would be done to me as opposed to me being the one to bring my son aside. And yes, just knowing that you can do what you can in the circumstance to have the best birth on the day, basically.
Okay. And one of the things that we sort of touch on sometimes as well is what support can the birth partner give to the mum-to-be when these sort of things come up, or maybe there is some anxiety and things there. But the interesting thing about anxiety is that anxiousness is a fear of what's yet to come. So what happens is we end up thinking ahead and putting out there into the future all the things that might go wrong. Whereas actually we never know what's going to happen in the future. It will happen the way it happens. So there is quite a big role in the partner to support the mum-to-be, particularly around, if there are any other things that might be happening around the pregnancy. So what advice do you give to partners about supporting people?
I would definitely say it's important for the partner to understand what it is that the mother would like to happen. So we're always talking about the positive, what you would like as opposed to what you don't want. And I think when he or she has got a full picture of what it is that the birthing mother is hoping for, they can support her more fully. First of all, because they're on the same page, they know what her wishes are. So in the birth room, if there are questions from the midwives, doctors, whoever, they are in a position where they could answer those run-of-the-mill questions so that the mother doesn't have to be interrupted while she's kind of in the zone, getting herself into the state of relaxation. Also, it means that if they understand what it is she's doing, I really find that it puts their mind at rest as well, because I've worked with couples where perhaps the father wasn't so much on side or the partner wasn't so much on side to begin with, because maybe they were sceptical about hypnobirthing or they didn't understand, why is she doing this? What does she want from this? But once they took the time to sit down and to understand, firstly, what her concerns are, and then having put those concerns aside, what she would like to happen. Once they've got a picture of what she wants, they then get a better picture of what they can do to support her in that. And I think it is really important for the partner to do the work as well to relieve any anxieties that they may have. Because we talk about, in hypnobirthing, it's very palpable when a loved one is stressed. So if you imagine your birth partner is very likely to be, your lover, your husband, your wife, somebody that you're very close to. So we know what that's like. Even a stranger, if somebody walks into the room and they're feeling anxious and nervous, we feel that. We pick up on these things. Even if it's not something physical we can see, there are cues, hormonal cues, etc. So imagine if a woman is in her birthing space with a partner that is anxious and full of adrenaline, she picks up on this, and this affects the atmosphere in the birth room. So I think where a partner can understand what he or she can do to deal with any of their own anxieties and have the knowledge of what it is that the birthing mother wants, so they're understanding how to support her. Those two things combined, I think, really do make a difference to what they can do to make her experiences as good as it can be.
Remember, if the birthing space is supposed to be calm and you're there going, come on, be really calm, come on. So if you put out there what you want. So if you want calmness, again, get your own breathing. You've done the classes if you've been the birth partner, or you've been practicing using the CDs. Just do the same breathing for yourself. There's lots of hypnobirthing techniques that work really well for birth partners. It isn't just about a birthing technique. A lot of this stuff is about things that you can use when you're anxious. So again, just breathe with that person. You'll soon notice a change in your own state. And about creating that birth space that is exactly how you want it to be, given the circumstances that you have. One of the other main things as well is flexibility. Stuff will happen. Stuff will come out of the blue. Things will happen, and it's right. Okay, you can always start from now, because you can't change what's happened in the past. You can't change what's happened before, but you can learn about now, so you can then sort out what you want to have happen in the future. So that's a really good way of thinking about it as well. So when it comes to people that kind of come to you now, say, I'm really concerned, I've got this pregnancy, I've been given this label, I've been told this thing. What's the first thing that you start to do with couples as soon as they come into the classes that really help them to understand what's happening with themselves?
So one of the things that I do is definitely I speak to them, obviously, about the situation. What is it that they've been told? What is the the diagnosis, or what is the circumstance? What is the special circumstance that they have been told that they have or their baby has? And then I think speaking to them about the questions that they can ask around that. So I think I might have touched on this earlier before. Sometimes things will come up or things will be suggested because this is a hospital's protocol. So, for example, if we use a special circumstance of, say, gestational diabetes, a woman may get told that at this trust, at this hospital, when a woman with your level of insulin issues gets to this position, then we induce. And it's great that hospitals have protocols and guidelines, but I think speaking to them about understanding, getting to a point where they understand what is something that is done because that's what we do here at this hospital, versus this is what we are suggesting because it's for your particular circumstance.
Okay.
So I think giving them the questions, giving them that understanding to get more information to see when something is best for them.
Right, okay.
So as I said, I don't give any medical advice, but just getting them to a point where they understand that they can ask questions around their special circumstance.
I think the other interesting thing to think about, if you are doing classes, or even if you're reading a book, what does that person know? What is their experience around what I feel might be something that's a circumstance that I have? So actually do some research in your teachers as well, because lots of different teachers have lots of different levels of experience. Some of them have had medical experience, some of them have been midwives, some of them are midwives still. So do research. I think one of the things that Tracy, she is a knowledge sponge. She did a research, she did lots of thinking about it, she found out about stuff. This is your pregnancy, your birth, your baby, and do all that you can to empower yourself, and particularly in the questions that you ask as well, because that's really important in terms of ensuring that things will go the way you want them to go, is if you put yourself in that position of power to enable that you've got as much knowledge as possible. So along with knowledge, along with questions, are any other sort of top tips you would give to people when they're thinking about, I've got these circumstances, anything else that you would suggest that people think about when they've got the birth of their baby coming up?
I would say perhaps focus on some particular exercises that might work really well for you. So with the hypnobirthing scripts, so these are the hypnotherapy scripts that are used in hypnobirthing, there'll often be kind of some physical anchors in there.
Okay.
So for example, one of the scripts that I use involves stroking of the hand, which is designed to release endorphins. Endorphins is the body's natural painkiller, which is several times more powerful than morphine. So many of my clients will say, I find that really soothing. I find that's something that instantly gets me into that space of being relaxed. So I get them to identify what are the key parts of your practice that really work for you. What are the key things that get you very, very quickly into your hypnotic state? So one of the things with hypnobirthing is that there'll be lots of different types of techniques, because we understand that everybody has different modalities, everybody works differently. Some people might prefer touch, some people work really well on sound, or whatever it may be. So if there is a technique that works really well for you, definitely communicate that with your partner, so he or she knows that this is what works for you, this is what instantly calms you, so that they know what to do, they know what to use to help you get into your space, and also so that you know what to do to get yourself into that space very, very quickly. Some people will listen to a script in birth, or have a script read to them, but it's also possible to get yourself into the way you feel when you're having a script read to you. You can get into that state without having a script read to you, if that makes sense. There are shortcuts to that. So knowing what your triggers and your shortcuts are, identifying those ahead of time and using them, let your partner know what they are as well, so he or she knows what to do to help you and to get you there.
I mean, remember, you are a team. So whether or not, you, your partner, a doula, anybody within your midwife team, you are a team that's there to help support you and your baby coming into this world. It's an exciting time, and so it's giving yourself that ability to become excited. Because if you can be excited rather than anxious, quite often they sit in the same space. And for me, it's like that feeling in your tummy of anxiousness versus excitement. And actually, it's quite easy to confuse the two. So sometimes we can be excited and we kind of read that as anxiousness. So kind of channel that excitement and think, okay, so there are these circumstances, I've got these things. Or maybe there aren't any circumstances, it's just first baby, or perhaps you had cesarean last time round. Whatever it happens to be, keep excited. Because if you're in that excited frame of mind, think how different the day looks when you're excited versus how it looks if you've maybe been a bit stressed. Unfortunately, the only difference between the days is always you, never the day. So what can you do to kind of keep in that right headspace, really? So you're up in North London.
Yes, that's right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about if people want to get in contact with you and find out a little bit more?
Lovely, yes. So I'm in North London, as Andy said. I'm based in sort of the Highgate, Islington area, so I go out to see couples one-to-one in their home, and I'm available to do that anywhere across London. And I run group classes between Highgate and Archway in North London. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, of course you can message me via the group. I'm one of the admins on here, so my name is Tracy O'Wary. You'll see that in the group description, in the video description. And you can also visit my website, which is Sankofa Hypnobirthing. So Sankofa is SANKOFA hypnobirthing.co.uk. and you can get in touch with me that way, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I love speaking to people
Brilliant.
ahead of meeting them, so I'd be happy to answer any questions ahead of getting together.
Cool. And guys, keep commenting. Hi Hannah, I know you've put up a hello quite a while ago, but didn't get a chance to say. Obviously, we've got loads of people in this group from the States, we've got lots of people from Australia, all around the world. There's nearly 7,000 people in this group. So keep commenting on this thread, because it'd be really interesting to find out what you thought, any questions that you've got. So let's keep the discussion rolling, on the basis of this video, and keep asking questions in here. Remember, this is an empowering group. It isn't for practitioners to keep coming along and going, right, I've got this workshop on, and we get rid of all those things. What this group is for people to ask questions around hypnobirthing, and peer support, peer review, getting information from like-minded people. That's exactly what this hypnobirthing space on Facebook is all about. So thank you so much for sharing your Sunday afternoon. Hi Sophie, you're probably watching this out there, or mum's in labour, so you might not be watching it, but I'm sure you'll watch it back later. So thank you so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us, and we shall speak to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.